Over the years, Adobe has been battling with the issue of software piracy on its products. This battle began as early as the 1990s when software piracy started to become a significant issue with the widespread of internet usage. Because of this problem, various measures were set in place by the company and it has led to a varying degree of success. Now, the problem wasn't completely solved, but it was at what we could call a stable situation where the total number of licensed users significantly outweighed the total number of unlicensed users. In scenarios like this, it suggests that piracy is not severely affecting the software provider revenue and operations, allowing the company, in this case Adobe, to focus less on aggressive anti-piracy measures and more on improving and innovating their products. This means unlicensed users were not on Adobe's radar at the time, thereby giving them the advantage of using the software without any hassle. It was a peaceful moment between unlicensed users and Adobe, and everyone was pretty much happy and expected this grace period to last for a lifetime. That was until Adobe introduced their most aggressive and brutal feature, which has shocked and frightened the entire unlicensed users community.
They've actually been cracking down on people who are using cracked Photoshop softwares, and they've been insisting on them getting rid of it and paying for the subscription.
In this video, I'll help you understand everything concerning this whole issue. We'll be diving into some concepts, explaining the nature of Adobe softwares, and we'll also be laying out the cards to see if things can go back to the way it was or if it's only going to get much worse from here. Welcome back to another video, and as Fisher always says, if you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you. Be sure to stay to the end, and if you find this information helpful, then do leave a like and also share to others so that more people can benefit from what we're doing here. Alright, with that said, let's get into the video. Before we start, let's talk about some fundamentals. One of the primary reasons why softwares like Adobe's is widely pirated is because people genuinely need it for work or personal projects but can't afford the higher subscription cost. This leads us to a phenomenon which is often referred to as price elasticity of demand in economics, where the demand for a product is sensitive to its price. It's the concept of how consumers will respond to the increase or decrease of a price or product, meaning if these prices go up, the demand for the product decreases, and if the prices goes down, the demand for the product will increase. And this is where the whole stuff gets confusing, because since Adobe is charging way high for its product, isn't the demand for softwares like Premiere Pro, After Effects, Photoshop, and in all the entire Adobe suites, isn't the demand for it supposed to come down? But the demand for products like this are increasing, maybe even day by day. Then what's really going on? You see, a normal business venture would follow the concept of price elasticity of demand, but in Adobe's case, it's quite complex due to the nature of digital goods. And this is where we switch entirely to economics. The phenomenon of price elasticity of demand is made of two concepts. The first is elastic demand, and the second is inelastic demand. In elastic demand, consumers are very responsive to price changes. So, like I earlier explained, if the price of a product goes way high, the demand for it goes way low, and vice versa. Whilst in inelastic demand, consumers are less responsive to price changes. So even if the prices go way up, the demand won't fall much. Most products are either elastic or inelastic, but in Adobe's case, it has both the characteristics of an elastic demand and an inelastic demand. This is because Adobe's products like Premiere Pro are industry standards, making them highly desirable for professionals and students, and amongst various other reasons. When Adobe increases prices, the number of legal purchases decreases significantly among average creative users. These users often do not make much money from their craft but still need the software for various work purposes. This is a characteristic of elastic demand, where demand is sensitive to price changes. However, due to the necessity of the software, these users do not stop using it altogether. Instead, they may turn to pirated copies. So they continue to still use the software but do not pay for it. On the other hand, for creatives who make substantial money and can easily afford Adobe's subscription, an increase in price does not always lead to a significant decrease in the number of legal purchases. These users have the financial means to pay for the software and recognizes its essential value to their work. Therefore, even if prices rise, the demand amongst these professional users remains relatively stable. This is a characteristic of inelastic demand, where demand is not highly sensitive to price changes. And this leads us to the main topic of today, which is simply put, software piracy as the unauthorized copying, distribution, and use of software. These include downloading and using software without paying for it, sharing software illegally, or using a single software license for multiple computers beyond its permitted limits. I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons why a lot of people tend to use pirated copies is because of the high cost of the software. The entire Creative Cloud suite, which gives you access to all of Adobe's popular software, costs around $62 a month or $709 a year. That's 96,000 naira a month or a whopping 1 million naira a year at the time of making this video. According to unknown sources, the average annual income for creatives in the United States is around $67,000, which translates to about $5,583 per month. So if we do the math, a monthly cost of $62 for an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription translates or represents about 1.1% of the average monthly income, making it relatively affordable for most creatives living in countries like the United States. In countries like mine, where first, the exchange rate is crazy, second, the inflation rate is about 33.95% at the time of making this video, and third, the income gap between creatives here and that of our counterparts in economically developed countries is pretty big due to many factors. Not many creatives will be able to purchase an Adobe subscription. An analysis from Glassdoor stated that the average salary for freelancers in Lagos, Nigeria is anywhere from 33,000 to 144,000 naira a month. That's an average of 100,000 naira, which is just about $65. And if this person was to pay for a Creative Cloud subscription, that's about 95.45% of his monthly income, which is absolutely crazy. Now, the truth is, when it comes to income, especially as a creative, it really differs. Depending on the nature of your job as a creative, whether you're a freelancer or you're working for a company, whether you're a professional or you're just starting out, your income is your income. So whilst there's a significant number of people that can easily afford the subscription, there are still large numbers of people that can't afford to pay for softwares like Premiere Pro, Photoshop and the rest. And these people, understanding how essential the softwares are, often result in getting pirated copies. And hey, I can't really judge. It's believed that unlicensed softwares are always a target for malware. This is because softwares like these are often obtained from unofficial, untrusted sources. These sources can include websites, peer-to-peer networks, and other informal channels where the integrity of the software cannot be guaranteed. Unlicensed software users don't also have access to updates and security patches, leaving their systems exposed to known vulnerabilities that malware can exploit. According to the Business Software Alliance 2018 Global Software Survey, organizations now face a nearly 1 in 3 chance of encountering malware when they obtain or install unlicensed software. It stated that malware from unlicensed software cost companies worldwide nearly $359 billion a year. Now, just think for a sec. As a business, your accounts, your data, all those stuffs are very much of value. And if your computer gets affected, you stand a chance of losing potentially everything, because hackers could infiltrate your data and who knows what might happen. This also goes to individuals as well. Malware is spread through files and software, so be extra careful whenever you are collecting a file or a software from a friend or anyone in general. Alright, let's go back to Adobe. Millions of people are using the Creative Cloud softwares every single day. A report from ProDesign Tools stated that the Adobe Creative Cloud adoption had grown to over 33 million paid members. And these are just figures from paid Creative Cloud users. You might still have figures from users that use single Adobe products, and also of course those that have pirated versions. Now imagine there's a huge fraction of this number that are not paying because they're using pirated copies. That will result to millions and even potentially billions of revenue loss that Adobe will have to incur. This is because when people use pirated copies instead of purchasing legitimate versions, Adobe loses potential sales. Each pirated copy represents a lost sale, and if a significant number of people are using pirated versions, this can amount to a substantial loss in revenue. So put it as, the more pirated copies, the more Adobe loses revenue. And this was one of the reasons that led Adobe to launch this. Adobe has taken several measures over the years to combat software piracy and to ensure the use of genuine software. Back then, they introduced product activation, which required users to validate their software online. They also implemented other steps like serial number tracking, digital rights management, and even took legal actions against individuals and organizations involved in distributing pirated copies of its software. These included lawsuits and settlements to deter piracy. All these were initiatives taken to stop software piracy, and whilst it brought the level of piracy under control, it wasn't really enough to shut it down. This was when Adobe decided to create a more reliable, user-friendly system to combat software piracy, protect users, and secure its business interest. And this is where AGS comes in. It stands for Adobe Genuine Service, and it is a software developed by Adobe Systems. Its primary function is to verify the authenticity of Adobe softwares installed on a user's computer. If AGS detects a software installation that it suspects to be unauthorized or non-genuine or pirated, it may generate notifications or prompts to the user. These notifications can vary in their urgency and actions required depending on Adobe's policies and the severity of the discrepancy detected. The AGS has been around since 2018, and I guess over that time some users were receiving notification stating that the app wasn't genuine, but I don't think it went for everybody. The system maybe didn't detect all unlicensed users at the time, but as of late last year and early this year, the AGS system became less friendly. And the way it did this was that when you opened your licensed Adobe software, you would immediately receive a prompt stating that your app is non-genuine and could potentially be disabled, and you would think it just stops there, but it went a step further by actually force closing the applications, making it unreliable to you as a creative. Now that's just brutal and scary if you ask me. Of course, you only receive the prompt and the force closure whenever you're connected to the internet, but even at that, if you need to look up for ideas, or generally you're watching a tutorial from YouTube and you need to work on the softwares at the same time, you can't readily do so. It just force closes, which is sad and can be quite frustrating, especially if you have an urgent deadline to meet. This then leads us to the question. Now, I see the whole situation, and my first thought towards this was that this was going to be another barrier for upcoming creatives. I mean, it's difficult already when you're starting out and you don't have the fancy laptops or the editing features or even high-paying jobs. And now the one thing millions of creatives are depending on, which are the softwares, is now slowly being taken away from them. Now, before someone thinks and says, oh, don't worry, there are ways you could bypass the AGS, and literally some people have posted videos showing you ways you can get around this, which is surprisingly shocking. But if there's one thing I want you guys to understand, is that this is an ongoing battle. The issue of software piracy is something companies have been fighting for decades and will continue to do so. So even if you find a way to bypass it now, what about later? What if Adobe makes the AGS even stronger? Or worse, what if they take brutal legal actions? Or what if they bring something else that we won't even see coming? What then? I get it, you really need these softwares, and it's not just as easy as getting free alternatives. I speak to myself as I'm saying this to you guys, but you have to understand that it will come to a point where we all can't run away from this. It's just the way things are. The way I will go about this, and the mindset I want other creatives to adopt, is to get to the point where you can pay for your own software. Even if you don't have the money to pay now and you're using your licensed software, save off as much as you can from your job or from the income you get as a freelancer, and once you have something sustainable, just use that to switch to pay. Except you don't want to pay, then what I'm saying isn't for you. But for those who genuinely want to pay but don't have the resources to, it's fine. That's how everyone started out. You have to understand and appreciate the value you're getting from these softwares. If it was that easy to switch to a free software, then most people won't be using pirated copies. But it's because these softwares are packed with the essentials, tools and features that can't be found in any software or can be found in every software. Now, the only option is to look for alternatives that are free or not as expensive as Adobe softwares. Yeah, that's the only option. The AGS systems is still sending out prompts and force closing these applications, and yeah, even if it's still usable, the fear and worry is for how long. Now, the measure Adobe is setting in place isn't wrong. If we look at it other than profit on the company, if we pay for our softwares, we are at an advantage because we get access to updates and security patches, and that's just nice. But what do you think about all this? Have you been receiving prompts from Adobe? What actions are you taking? Are you switching to another software, or are you just going to start paying? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, make sure you don't miss the next one.